All right, so film scholar DB refers to the years 1917 to 1960 as the classical era of filmmaking in Hollywood. So DB refers to this era as a classical era of filmmaking in Hollywood. DB defines the era's style as being governed by straightforward narrative considerations. So, for example, the need to follow well-defined characters through a chronological sequence of events or plot. So, what does that mean?
So like sorry, were you
Oh,
still
you're good.
going?
Yeah, that was literally me asking, like, what does that mean? So, he was saying that he defines this era style. So, this classical era in the filmmaking was just the need to have like well-defined characters and like having a chronicle sequence of event or plots. The technical elements of filmmaking, camera movement, lighting, editing, and sound are all employed to tell a realistic story, one in which the world of the story is self-sufficient and recognizably related to our own. So this is like I'm thinking of just like the classical era was just like we just told like realistic stories and we did it in a very realistic way. What's that movie? They have like the spinning thing and it's like Inception maybe.
Oh,
This
maybe.
is like the opposite of Inception, right? Like no plot twists that are like, wait, like yeah, this is like just very realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Devices that draw our attention to the film as a film rather than the story are avoided. So all of the extras that we use should allow us just to pay attention to the story. We don't want like a superhero movie where all of the extras that are so cool to watch, like we don't want to pay attention to those. We just want to pay attention to the story.
Right.
All right, go ahead and read paragraph 2.
Within this definition, the musical films of the 1930s are anomalous in that they interrupt narrative to present musical performances only tangentially related to the plot. So then the definition of the musical films in the 30s are that they interrupt the story, um, and that the musical performances within the film are related to the plot,
Yeah,
but
so like
not.
Hairspray, right? Like
Yeah.
very cool.
Okay. In one film directed by BB, for example, a scene begins with a shot of an audience watching a singer. So we're talking about a film directed by BB, and we're talking about how the opening scene of the movie is a singer being watched by the audience. The singer's faces then fills the screen, a natural enough transition, but this image soon dissolves into a fanciful sequence consisting of various aerial views of city life. So it's saying basically once while that scene is going on, the camera kind of zooms in on the face to transition to a different scene, which is just different views of a city life.
Right, yes.
Okay. Although the sequence illustrates the song being sung, it does not contribute to the story Berkeley tells between musical numbers. So he's saying that the sequence goes with the song being sung. It doesn't necessarily contribute to the story in between the musical songs going
Right.
on.
So it's just like a musical, like it's relevant, but it's not necessarily adding detail. You know, like I'm thinking like Aladdin, and it's like you've got a
Mhm.
no, that's Toy Story. You got a friend in me. Like it's cute, it's fun, it's relatable, but it's not adding. We're not learning anything from hearing it.
Right, right. Okay. In such sequences, filmmaking techniques are used not to advance a narrative, but as a respite from narrative. So they're saying that by doing this, it's not to contribute to the plot or the narrative, but to take away from it. I don't know what respite
I don't know
means.
what that means. I don't think it's necessarily to take away, but maybe to contrast or like we want it to be different. Like the point of a music like, is like in a musical, the song is the point of it to add to the narrative. No, the point of it is just to enhance the experience in a different light.
Oh, okay.
Right? Wouldn't you
Okay.
agree? Like Hamilton. Hamilton actually would be a bad example because that progresses as a narrative. So
Yeah.
never mind. Love Hamilton. Oh, okay. Anyways, continue.
Okay. The people we see are not characters in a plot, but rather are abstracted figures. Editing. Oh, okay. So it's saying that the characters or the people that play the characters are not related to the plot, but are rather just like abstracted figures. So just kind of like,
Background dancers.
yeah. Yeah, there we go. Editing and camera movement function not to help tell a story, but to manipulate images into intricate patterns. So it's saying that the way that they edit and the moving the camera and stuff isn't necessarily to in favor for the story to contribute to the story, but to manipulate images into patterns. I don't know what they mean by that. It's just
I
for
think like it's like to make it fun, like
like to contribute like aesthetically.
yeah.
Okay. Can the musical in which such different can the musical in which such differently motivated and constructed sequences about so closely fit comfortably within B's definition of the classical style? So it's asking, can the musical, which is different, constructed differently from what B is saying, does it fit into? Can you classify musical into a classical movie?
And why do we love when they give us a rhetorical question?
Because that's what we're gonna answer.
Yes, it's that this is normally the main point, right? Whatever the answer is to the rhetorical question is most often the main point. All right, so
Right.
let's split this next one. I'll read the first half and you can read the second half. Okay,
Okay.
so B's response is that the musical, no less than comedy or melodrama to other staples of the classical era, evolved from popular live theater. So these types of music came from popular live theater. The musical's conventions, B argues, cue viewers to expect a different structure. Cue viewers, cue viewers. Oh, so the musical, yeah, I would agree. Whenever you know it's a musical, you kind of know it's going to be a different structure. You're not, I'm not, yeah. Alternating narrative scenes and self-contained performances from that of other genres, a structure that audience are prepared for and thus accept as realistic. Yes, I would agree. Like there can be a musical that's super serious, like Hamilton, or we can have a comedy, right? We understand that it's going to stop and we're putting different expectations on the singing part.
Right.
But raising the issue of genre does not disguise the fact that Bordel stretches the definition of the term realism. Who is saying this?
The author.
Excellent. But raising the issue of genre does not disguise the fact that he stretches the idea of realism, for there is still a problem exemplified in films such as Berkeley's by the fact that the musical performances are not merely self-contained, but self-absorbed. The selfish aesthetic of the interlude isn't intended to advance the plot, but instead to draw attention to its own artistic expertise. So we're saying like, okay, that's cool that you're saying that there's these boundaries on what people expect, but there's still this problem because the reason that we even do that is not to advance the plot. It goes back to we're just doing it for the added
Aesthetic.
aesthetic appeal. All right, so you can continue.
Even the viewer aware of the film's genre cannot remain entirely unfazed by the break in the film's reality. So even the like audience or the person watching the movie can't remain entirely unfazed.
So I think when it says like, yeah, we recognize that there's this break, but it still affects us or impacts us in some way. We don't just ignore it and all of a sudden we're like, all right, pause. All right, start. Like it's
Yeah.
still one experience.
Okay. Okay. Bordwell too quickly dismisses the fact that watching a film is a perceptual act and not an academic exercise in pigeonholing genres. So it's saying Broadwell kind of ignores that watching the film is something that's a perceptual act and it's not something that they're academically engaging in within the genre. Which dismisses the fact. Okay, so it's kind of saying that Broadwell is doing one thing, but this is what's actually going on. Like he's going against what Broadwell is saying.
Bordwell too quickly dismisses the fact that watching a film is a perceptual act and not an academic exercise in pigeonhole. Okay.
Okay. Because knowledge of genre is acquired, it would be worthwhile for scholars like Broadwell to first consider how viewers process cinematic images and eventually come to accept them as conventions before generalizing about the realism of certain film styles. So it's basically saying that since you need to have like background of the genre, scholars like Broadwell should consider how you look at the image in the movie, instead of, I guess, like putting in a big group, generalizing the realism of film
Right.
styles. And
Rather than just like accepting that, oh, people recognize that there's this break, they should instead analyze it from how does this fit into the overarching theme or overarching genre.
okay.
Would you agree? Is that kind of like how do they process it? So like asking them like what did you think of that, like what did that musical piece do for you in the experience, or how did it add to, or something like that.
Okay. Uh,
Awesome. Okay, so what would you say is the author's main point?
so he's kind of comparing and contrasting, not comparing and contrasting, but like trying to figure out if Broadwell's definition of a classical film can work with um, Berkeley's musical films.
Can it work with musical films?
Like if the musical films
Yes,
are,
I would take it one step further. Why do I think the author wrote this? To show us why um I would say the author writes this to show
it does or doesn't
why
fit.
it doesn't completely fit yet, and why we shouldn't even try. Like we should consider this alternative method instead.
Yeah.
Do you think that the author is positive, neutral, or negative?
I don't think that they're. I think they're just trying to prove that it doesn't overlap. So I don't necessarily think that they're positive or negative. I think they're just neutral and just trying to show that it doesn't fit into the classical.
Awesome. And what's kind of like the structure of this passage?
So we get an introduction of what a classical film is and who David Broadwell is, and
Mhm.
then it talks about
So I say we
uh,
get background information.
right, and then sorry, I'm trying to. We get Berkeley into it in the second paragraph.
So we apply that background information into
Berkeley,
musicals.
right? Yeah, and his musicals. And it basically talks about his musicals and what goes on in there,
And then we have the question.
right? Which is our like main point that our author's going to answer.
And then we answer it.
Yes,
We answer it and then we almost say like what would be
better a solution, not a solution,
not
but
a
a
solution, what would it be? It would be
alternative.
like what, yeah, it's almost like a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.